Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Survivor Savant podcast. I am your host, Nathan Newport, the self-proclaimed Survivor Savant himself. Try saying that 5 times fast. Today, we are here to talk about Survivor Africa, Episode 5, The Twist. I am all prepped and ready to go for this podcast. I even got my Survivor... Oh, I accidentally turned on the light. Oh, I did it again. Okay, there we go. Anyway. I have my Survivor mug here, filled with coffee. That's actually really good, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Normally, for coffee, I'm gonna be honest, I'm normally a guy who likes his coffee with cream. But recently, though, I've been trying out black because normally I'm not a big fan of black coffee, but it's been actually really helpful with my my phlegm, that way it's not continually coming back up, Not to sound disgusting or anything, but, it's starting to grow on me more. Not to say that black coffee is going to be my favorite from now on, but, I'm still a coffee with creamer kind of guy. But in the meantime, I like it okay. I'm not going to be a hater about it anymore, no. But anyway, let's get into today's episode. So, Survivor Africa, Episode 5, The Twist. Now, why is it called The Twist, you wonder? Well, that's because it is the start of one of many things that happen throughout Survivor, and which we've quite most recently seen in Survivor 45, but I'll tell you more about that later. With that being said, the episode starts off with Samburu, who were getting back from Tribal Council after the vote with Linda, and how Linda was voted out with 4 votes, and there were 3 votes cast against Silas by Linda, Frank, and Teresa. Now, it's become pretty apparent that the younger crowd seem to be taking over the Samburu tribe. Even though they are the Samburu tribe, it's still 2 tribes within one, with the younger crowd going up against the older crowd. And Silas is definitely displeased about that because he really wanted his plan to work about keeping the votes on Lindsay, so that way nobody else on the younger crowd could have votes that are cast against him when they go into a tie. Like, if it was all votes against Lindsay and there were more votes against somebody else from Baran, then they would go. But the older crowd was not pleased with not having anything to come out of this for them. Like, what did they get in return? They were like, nothing. So it was kind of a slap in their face, and rightfully so, and that's why they voted against Silas, because they were not gonna go for his plans, and Silas definitely was really not all for that. And okay, let's face it, I know you're still having to deal with each other for next several days, and yes, I do say several, meaning 7 more days, as Jelinski would say, several means 7, but you still gotta learn to live with each other, despite you not liking each other within your groups. And I try my best to deal with the personalities that I'm dealt with and not try to get too bitter about it, unlike Silas, who's absolutely bitter about getting votes and not having the older crowd follow their plans. So whatever, Silas is going to try to move on from it because he's happy, he has the numbers, he's got the younger crowd on his side, and as the game progresses, they're just going to keep voting out the older crowd one by one until it's just them. Dumb plan, by the way. To quote Tony Stark, not a great plan. We then get this tree mail. Now, the tree mail is kind of vague, with that being select 3 from your tribe to go on a quest. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of sketchy. What's gonna happen? So both Samburu and Baran had to pick 3 members from their tribe to go on this quest. And the quest is to travel to where they originally started the game, like the drop off point where they started, like the truck and the guy was going down, down, faster, hurry up, down, 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 and nobody had a precise idea of what was going to happen. Is there going to be a reward there that they're going to fight for? Is it going to be information about the challenge? Like, what's going to happen? So Samburu, immediately they were just like, Frank and Teresa can go. And out of everybody from the younger crowd in Samburu, they chose their leader, Silas, to go with Frank and Teresa. Meanwhile, over on Baran, they chose the three of the best people that they have, which are Lex, Kelly, and Big Tom. So they make their way to where they're supposed to meet up, which is at the drop-off point where they got dropped off, or in this case, marooned or stranded. And there's Jeff with his bag. And right now, we're at the point where things are about to get interesting for Survivor Africa. So the first thing Jeff asks from all three members from Samburu and from Baran is to take off their buffs and give them to him. And then, out of sheer shock, he pulls out new Baran buffs and gives them to Frank, Teresa, and Silas. He then pulls out new Samburu buffs and gives them to Kelly, Lex, and Big Tom. That's right. It's the first official Survivor tribal swap. This is the first to ever happen in the series of Survivor, and it probably won't be the last. Like I said, the last time this occurred was in Survivor 45. By the way, this is the first time... No, wait. Not the first time. The second time that a tribe swap had occurred in the new era of Survivor. The first time they had a tribe swap was in Survivor 44, where one person from each of the three tribes went on a jury, and they were informed that they would go to a new tribe. So that was a bit of a shock. And ever since then, and we've it's been something we were kind of all expected. There's got to be a tribe swap in the future. Like, who's going to go on which tribe? Are they going to stay the same? Are they going to be on a new tribe? Will they be outnumbered? Will they have the majority? The tribe swap is very interesting. And now thinking about it, if I were in the case of where I was in the middle of a tribe swap, and here's kind of how I would play it out. If I was in the middle of a tribe swap, and if I was on the side that had the most numbers, great. Fantastic. Gotta make sure that the numbers stay intact so that nobody sways or tries to get somebody voted out, especially from my alliance. Just make sure everybody stays intact without going super dictator on them. Like, no, we're all staying, we're all gonna vote. Nobody, talk to no one. And this is our game, we control it. And I'm like, no, let's not play a dictator here. However, if I was on the other side of the numbers where I didn't have anyone to depend on and I was in the minor majority, now that I think about it, knowing the current season that I would be on, this is why I need the coffee. Knowing the current era that I'm gonna be in if I were to play Survivor, it's very crucial that I either, one, find an advantage or an idol that could protect me in the next tribal council, or two, I would find someone to closely bond with and try to connect with. Someone who kind of feels on the outs, somebody who feels like they don't belong with the tribe they originally started with, and try to build up the numbers from there. If I can connect with someone who I see as not only as a good number, but someone who I could definitely totally vibe with, then maybe I could have a shot on going further in the game without having to worry being on the wrong side of the numbers. So it's interesting to see how the tribe swap could work. Knowing how you could play with the majority or minority, depending on where you are, or after a tribe swap. And we'll definitely see that and when it comes to this switch, which first occurred in Survivor Africa. So, just to recap, after the tribe swap, here are the current members now. On the new Samburu tribe, we have Brandon, Lindsay, Kim Powers, Lex, Kelly, and Big Tom. On the new Baran tribe, we have Ethan, Clarence, Kim Johnson, T-Bird, aka Teresa, Frank, and Silas. Now, they're given maps that leads them to their camps. And Lex and Tom, they are not quite happy. And Kelly also, understandably, is not happy to go over to Samburu tribe, or in this case, the Sambuhu tribe, which is what they've been calling them. Because, and especially Big Tom was like, you know, when Jeff told me to give me his buff, give him his buff, my buff, and I could have just ran away. Like, if the choices were give him my buff or run away, I'd still run away. You know, he would much rather run away and head back to Baran than go over to Samburu. Like, he knows it's gonna be bad over there. I can totally feel for him on that perspective. I could totally feel for him. So when they immediately arrive at camp, the 3 new Sambuhu members, I'm sorry, I can't stop saying it now. It's funny. They're immediately greeted by the younger crowd, and they were surprised, and definitely most surprised by how bad the camp situation is. They've had bad management on the fire. There's a pile of ash that's like, I don't know how I'll explain this, but there's like a big pile of ash. They definitely you see that this camp has been ran by a bunch of lazy people, and there's hardly even firewood too. So they know that it's going to be a complete nightmare being at Samburu, and it's also very bad when they're guiding you on where to get the firewood while still being lazy and slacking off. And it's even more bad when they go to a watering hole when they realize they've been drinking nothing but mud. Like, as they're digging out and trying to build like a new well like they did over at the Baran camp, it's still covered in crud. Like, it's just digging and nothing but crud. Which goes to show that they're not being wise or being smart at all with how they survive. It's really frustrating, and I can understand where they're coming from. And Big Tom especially was just like, I think they're just praying that firewood is just gonna drop up from the sky, or some kind of big artesian waterfall almost gonna rain from the sky, maybe even a swimming pool, because they're literally not being in what this game represents. Like, this is all about survival. Well, yeah, it's gameplay, but it's also about survival. And these kids don't even know how to survive out here. Like, it's crazy. I would hate to be on that tribe too. I'm not gonna lie, I would hate to be on that tribe. But we move on to the Baran camp, where we see Frank, Teresa, and Silas go over to Baran. Ethan especially is like, imagine if I had a dummy and as I was drinking I would have him talk as I'm drinking coffee. That would have been funny. But anyway, Ethan was like, oh, what are they doing here? Had they come to steal our flag or come to check out our camp? Like, what's going on? They were then informed about the switch, and they were completely surprised about this twist. Like, this is something that has never happened before, and they weren't expecting it. So as much as Silas can put on a happy face about going over to meet new people, he's like, this is bad. Like, he was at a good place on the Samburu, who are having the majority, but now he's at Baran now, which puts him in a very bad spot, and it's become a real thorn on his side, as he's said. So it's become pretty evident that Silas is definitely worried now about being at Baran, especially after her targeting Frank and Teresa, who they do not like Silas at all. And they absolutely let Kim Johnson and Ethan know about this too, that Silas has been having control of the numbers over at Samburu, and they try to convince them to no, excuse me, I almost burped. They try to convince them into doing a plan where they keep votes on Lindsay because she's the only one that would have votes right now, which is false because Silas now has votes. So they're just laying them in on everything that they know over at Samburu. Because let's face it, they're down in the numbers. They need to switch in order to survive or last longer out there, which I would totally get. Like, when in doubt, switch out and see if you can make something better out of that situation. So it's pretty evident that Silas is trying as hard as he can to make sure that he's one who makes sure that he stays in the game and make sure that he doesn't get voted out. And it's kind of at a point now where he's trying to buddy up with Clarence, who, by the way, is also on the bottom at Baran. After, everybody's still got their eye on Clarence, especially after the whole canned beans incident with Diane. And no one knows if they could still trust him. And especially if he makes it to the merge, because he is a physical threat and challenges. And if he were to compete further in the merge, there might be a chance that he could win. So they're still keeping an eye on him, and they're keeping him as an option to vote out if that were to be the case. But we immediately get into the reward challenge now. Now this is a very interesting reward challenge. The reward challenge is they have 20 goats each for Samburu and Baran. They have like little collars with the tribe colors according to their tribes, and they have to herd them into a different corral pen, while one member from each tribe will act as like the shepherd, or yeah, I think shepherd would be the right term. First person to get all 12 goats herded into their corrals wins the reward. In this case, 3 live chickens to take with them back to camp. And, this is probably a challenge that's built for Big Tom. So you think Samburu when being a goat farmer and all. So they're trying their best to herd the goats into their corrals and, kind of like pushing them and making sure they're herding. Granted, if I were to be in that challenge, I would probably have a big problem because, one, I've never done any kind of farming or corralling before, so I probably would think that animal herding would be one of the difficult challenges of all. And 2, actually I think it would just be 1, me having a problem with corralling goats. But yeah, like I was saying, you think with Big Tom being a goat farmer from Virginia, you think he would have this challenge hands down. But nope. It does not go well for Samburu. Silas, who was once on Samburu, is seen carrying a goat to the pen, and Ethan and Clarence are doing the same thing. We're like, okay, I guess that's allowed. And eventually, once they get all goats into their pens, it's Baran who wins the reward, with it being the chickens. And it was kind of hard for Lindsay to deal with that because, Silas was once on their side, and having to have him beat you in the challenge, and it brought a pretty bad feeling to them. And, she's starting to worry now that she's going to be at risk of going to tribal council and possibly be voted out. Like, somebody is going to vote for her and she's going to go home. But her alliance members, KP and Brandon, are trying to assure her that they're trying their hardest to make sure that she doesn't go. Brandon even tries to convince them to like somehow I'll vote for him, so that way no target could be pointed at Lindsay. But she's up to the point where she's starting to become really paranoid now, thinking that everybody's coming out to get her. And paranoia is something that could work against you or for you. I know for Ethan, he's being cautious and wary about his numbers, especially with his alliance members. Well, I should say former alliance members with Lex and Big Tom, who are now on Samburu. But he knows how to be calm under pressure and try to keep it under wraps. While Lindsay doesn't know how to do that, she's kind of it's not going to be something for her to deal with well enough, and it's pretty challenging for her. It was pretty challenging for her. And Kelly even admits that even though, and I'm talking about Kelly, who used to be on Baran, Kelly Goldsmith, I had to say her full name now, what the heck. And Kelly Goldsmith is definitely letting everybody know that she is, even though she is on the Red Tribe, she's not calling them the Samburu Tribe because she is definitely not in on them. She's still Baran. She's fully clear on the Baran Tribe. So is Big Tom and so is Lex. Even though they're on the same tribe as them and they're wearing the same colored buffs, they're still Baran. And they still intend on getting rid of one of the younger crowds, which at the moment does seem to be either Brandon or Lindsay, depending on how well Brandon's plan would work. And it's not going to be something that it's going to stir off of their minds. Like, after what they've been dealing with, they are full on intended to make sure that Baran stays strong, and they're going to wipe out the younger crowd of Samburu. So we head over to Baran, and it seems as though Clarence and Silas are connecting well with each other, being the most physical players out of everyone in Samburu. I mean, Ethan's a soccer player, so I consider him a physical threat too, but he's keeping it low key though. He's not really showing it off, and that's what I like about Ethan. He's not really showing off his athleticism all that much. But it's become clearly apparent that both of them see themselves as physical threats, and they might be seen as people to get out early while they have the chance to. And Silas is trying to convince them that he has plans to get rid of Frank. And he's trying his hardest, making sure that he doesn't end up on the block, but we'll see. Meanwhile, Ethan and Kim Johnson are talking about possibly throwing the challenge just so they can go to council. Possibly throwing the challenge, so if they could go to tribal council, they had the choice to either get rid of Silas, who's a really strategic and physical threat, or get rid of Clarence, who they see as not only a physical threat, but also somebody that they can trust in the game. Which I can completely understand. Either one is still a win-win. You win the challenge, you don't go to tribal council. Well, woo! But if you lose, hey, you go to tribal council, you get rid of one of your biggest threats in the game. So, either way, it's still a win-win for people who are really playing this game hard, I would say. But anyway, we get into the immunity challenge. And this one is very simple. Across from them are 10, maybe 20 puzzle pieces. They have to grab the puzzle pieces from their station and then bring them back to the puzzle solving station. first tribe to get their entire puzzle solved wins immunity and are safe from tribal council. Losers go to tribal council, somebody will be voted out and be the first person voted out as Survivor Africa. Now, this puzzle is very interesting, and it's not like the puzzles we normally see nowadays on Survivor. Of course, it's relating towards Africa and their patterns and their style. In this case, it's kind of like an African style face or mask style puzzle. Like, there are pieces that are shaped like eyes, there's a piece that's shaped like a mouth or teeth, and there are golds, there are reds, there are whites, there are I'm trying to recall what the shapes are. Some of them are in shapes of triangles, some of them are in shape of like African jewelry. It's really cool. Like, if I could recreate that puzzle in my head, I could perfectly see it. It's definitely a human face or a mask like look to it, and everybody's making their way to the puzzle pieces. Even though Baran is trying our hardest, Silas is trying his hardest, but Ethan and Kim Johnson are slowly and taking their time trying to figure out this puzzle. Meanwhile, you got Samburu over here, who's giving their all, especially Lindsay and Brandon, saying which pieces goes where and where to put them and see if they fit perfectly. And it seems that Ethan and Kim Johnson's plan worked. Samburu goes to win the immunity challenge. They're safe. Baran has to go to tribal council and vote somebody out. And so it looked like it is yet to be a win-win scenario. Let's get back at the camp and see where their heads are at. So, Frank and T-Bird, obviously, they want to get Silas out because they're still planning to get revenge on him for getting rid of their two former older crowd members. Meanwhile, Frank is the target. Frank is on Silas's mind as a target, but he's trying to convince the other Baran members like Clarence Hansen. Wait, how would that work? Yeah. Okay, so Clarence, Kim J, and Ethan are people Silas is trying to convince to vote out Frank. Meanwhile, he's saying that he's got Frank and Teresa on his side, and he's going to convince them to vote for Clarence. While the four of them, I'm using it in quotes, the four of them vote for Frank. But let's be real here. Silas, you don't have everything in control. And that's pretty evident. It's pretty evident that after the switch, Silas has lost all control of things. The switch or twist was definitely what plummeted his game. Because when we get to tribal council and have the votes, Jeff didn't even read who Silas voted for. After the fourth vote, it was then decided Silas was the fifth person voted out of Survivor Africa after being considered as a game player, a liar, a physical threat, and let's face it, Silas, he really got himself screwed after the twist. His game was shattered after that. So Silas did vote for Frank, while the rest of them voted for Silas. And Frank, interesting enough, he wrote down Silas, aka Chip, as his vote. Now you may be wondering, why the heck is he calling him Chip? His name's not Chip. Apparently, Chip was a name that Silas learned or picked up after doing amateur boxing for a while. I did not know that about Silas when I was looking this up, but yeah, hey, the more you know, right? And to put a bad light on things, Silas was, this is pretty awkward to talk about, but I have to bring it up. Silas Gaither, around 2019, Silas Gaither was reported to be arrested after sexual charges against someone and possibly abuse, and it's not a good thing to hear about, especially after what you hear Silas has done in the past before then. You know, he opened with a restaurant with another contestant and from Survivor called Benry Henry. But no, it's pretty awful to hear that someone like Silas got to do something like that after their fame came crashing down on them. It's pretty dumb. It's pretty bad to hear, and you know, it's not great to hear things like that going on. And as much as we can all like fantasize about wanting to be this person if they get to be on Survivor, you're still reminded that these people are dealing with the real world and they're reaping what they're sow with their unfortunate events that occur with them. And all you can do is reminisce about it, try to learn from it, and hopefully move on and try to do best with that situation. And I will definitely try to learn from Silas's mistakes and make sure that I'm talking about in the game, not in what he's done in real life, just to let everybody know. As far as gameplay goes, Silas was definitely on top of that. You know, he was thinking about the numbers. He knew which side he had to go on which side would be best for his game. You know, he was thinking about getting to the end and winning that $1 million. Unfortunately, it was the switch that got to him, and eventually it's what ended his gameplay. And since then, from what I hear, Silas, even though he was reported to be arrested after those charges, he's since then been released after, I think, a $50,000 in bailout or something. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Now, I don't know what Silas is doing now, but let's just hope we don't see him again on TV with those kind of charges. Hopefully, never again. But anyway, on a lighter note, next episode we are going to be talking about what's further going to be happening at both tribes' camps after the switch, the good, the bad, and the humor and fun that we are going to have to see in the next episode. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode. I'm kind of pleased with how well this is going out to be for me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm happy with how short the episodes are. They're quick, they're full of information, and I could still do 3 episodes a week without having to cram all of it into like one video. So hopefully I can keep this going, and I hope this is a new improvement for you guys as you're watching this. So thank you guys once again for watching this as I take one more sip of my coffee. I hope you enjoyed being outsmarted, outclassed, and outspoken with the Survivor Savant podcast. This is Nathan Newport signing out. See you, everybody.